Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Review Show. And this week we are reviewing Super Rugby AU or Super Rugby Gold. That's our nice little joke for all you scientists out there. Super Rugby AU Round 8 action. Yes, we had two games this weekend. The Force against the Reds and the Brumbies versus the Waratahs. Now, I don't know what Stephen's been taking, but he does appear to be in lots of love with the Reds team at the moment, saying that was the better games of this weekend, even though they had a big win. What is it with you and the colour red? I mean, you seem to be you're not a Crusaders fan or anything, but you're loving the Reds team at the moment.
I mean, it's only one team, isn't it? I mean, what's the other red teams? I'm kind of at a loss. The Reds. What other red teams are there?
Crusaders. I don't know why you're in. Yeah, but it's the Reds. Okay,
is there a red South African team? I'm not sure.
No, there is.
They're playing red, but they're not called the Reds.
Well, we got the Lions.
Oh, the Lions. The Lions aren't bad. Good old
Lions playing red, and the Crusaders playing red. Yeah, those
successful
are
teams. What can I say?
Wait. Well, hang on. The Lions playing red, the Crusaders playing red, the Reds actually playing maroon,
and the Blues playing navy.
At least it's
aquamarine,
navy blue.
The Blues have all sorts of shades of blue. Let's be blunt. Well, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
They really could not.
Shades of blue.
They really do need a brand manager to get in there and give them, look, here's your color template, folks. Stick to this color template. Stop changing it every single year.
Pantone color chart. That's what they need to work with. Have a color number.
They need the color number. The other person who's talking who hasn't been introduced yet, so how rude of him to get involved, is Ashwin. How you doing, sir?
Well, you had my picture up there, and people are wondering he's here already, so I had to start talking. Oh, yeah, on Box of Fluffies.
Box of Fluffies, there we go. Oh, cool. Whatever those are, folks.
Box of Fluffy Ducks.
So, we will. Fluffy Ducks. I mean, Stephen, are you equally confused, or is that a Kiwi thing?
It must be, because I know exactly what he's talking about.
Right. It's a Kiwi thing then.
Phew. From Bombay.
So good evening, everyone. Look, we come to 8 p.m. every Sunday with this review show. This is the kind of the most rabbit hole show that we do, where we can head off in all sorts of tangents. So we'll try and we may try and stick with rugby, but we may talk about other things as well, such as fluffy ducks and maybe even fluffy duck drinking games. But maybe we won't go there. It's fuzzy ducks, isn't it? Not fluffy ducks. Fuzzy ducks is a drinking game. There we go.
Drinking.
Now I'm lost. I have no idea what's going on.
We kicked off with the Force versus the Reds. So, Steve, you said this was the better of the two games. So, why don't you take? I mean, it didn't look good for the Force from early on, did it? Because Tupu had a good game. He really is turning into a world-class prop. Even if he can sidestep himself, fall over, and drop the ball inside the try line.
He's a skilly, star-studded, amazing. You know, you put a 2 next to us as 1, or a 1 next to us 3, whatever side he's playing on, and he'll do everything for you. He'll play in the back line, he'll play in the forwards, he'll run people over, he'll sidestep people, and when no one's keen enough to tackle him, he'll just do it all by himself. That's how good a player he is. You know, the reason I say this is the more exciting game of the weekend was because I just don't like the Waratahs. They just don't play a good brand of rugby. But we're going to talk about them later on. I just don't enjoy watching them play. They just don't. We'll talk about the Waratahs later on. But the Reds, more exciting. They thumped the Force. But, I mean, this was a game that they kind of worked their way through. And as the game wore on, they got more dominant as the game wore on. They got more controlled. And as the game wore on, the Force were more and more ready to go home. So it was, I think, probably one of the best Reds performances, because they played, how to describe it without comparing them to a Crusaders style of game. But, you know, they worked their way through it. They pressurized the other team, and they played like a full 80-minute performance regardless of how the other team was playing. They played their game plan, went through their structure, and wore it down, even though the score was huge. they played how they wanted to, and they got better and better and better and finished really strongly. So when they play that sort of game plan, if they can do it against a team like the Brumbies or something like that, it should hold them in pretty good stead to have that experience of playing like that, regardless of playing against their opponent, if that makes sort of sense. So they're playing their game plan rather than playing against who they're up against sort of thing. So, yeah, it was good for them. And then they look really good. When they go, they go. And then they get things right. They look like a really attractive rugby playing team, and they have so many excitement machines. Not only like the forwards you've talked about, players like Tate McDermott is, I think, on another level in Australian rugby for a scrum half. He's playing really, really well. So I'm enjoying him at the base there, and just overall the team looks, I think, easily the second best team in Australia. I mean, who are the team that didn't play this weekend? I've forgotten them already. Don't even care.
According to Steve, they're a rebel and they'll never ever be any good.
Exactly.
Yeah, rebel without a cause. Look, Topu, he powered over early on, and that got disallowed for a knock on. He dropped the ball. It was 15-0 at half time, and they had 2 disallowed tries, or a try and one that was basically at mercy. It was one-way traffic, really. The force, when they got the ball, they just couldn't get over the gain line. So they'd go through phases, but go nowhere, and end up having to sort of basically kick it away and give it back to the Reds, who were more than happy to run with it. James O'Connor had a real good game, pulling the strings, particularly in that second half. It didn't help with players like Strachan, who started at 15 for the Force, dropping the ball when it was there. Ashwin, you said you'd seen 20 minutes of this game, and I think you've pretty much seen the whole 80 by seeing 20 minutes. It was pretty much the same. There was one little part after half time.
Was it really? Because the reason why I only end up watching 20 minutes of it is because nothing happens, and it's just I can't watch this. I'm falling asleep, and I go to bed, and then I wake up in the morning, and it's 57-5.
Well, you'd had a disallowed try, and you'd had a line-out maul that got stopped, but Dongunu swerved through for a try. So you had you'd had 2 tries before you fell asleep. So
almost.
The only bit the Force did do well, Steve, was just after half time, wasn't it? Basically, the Reds messed up the restart, gave the Force some the penalty from which they could go to the corner, and eventually, after a couple of attempts, they got the line-out maul to go over the try line. Did you think there was a bit of a comeback there, or not?
No, because you summed up what I was going to follow up with what you just said before. The Force, they didn't look like they knew how to attack and to break the line, and they often, exactly like you said, they often ran out of ideas and ended up just doing an aimless kick just because we don't know what else to do. So we'll just kick it away and hope they make a mistake and we can try again in a better position. They were going backwards when they had the ball. They weren't finding good touch finding kicks, or they weren't getting it away from the players covering back from the Reds. They just didn't really have much of an answer for the way that the Reds were defending and coming at them, and relentlessly coming at them as well. So it was really the complete sort of performance from the Reds. And I guess the Force are kind of a slippery banana skin team. If you let them get their tails up a little bit, they can be quite dangerous, but they didn't get that chance at all. Like I said, they were held to 0 at half time. They come out of the blocks nicely, and I mean, they got that early try, but like you say, they had to do that a few times and hack away at it before they actually got it to work and got it over. So it was good for the Reds' point of view, because they had to keep, well, they didn't have to, but they did keep up that momentum, and they did keep up that style and that high level of rugby that they were playing at, when it would have been easy in that last 20 minutes to just go, we're done, it's in the bag. The Force come along, score a couple of late tries. Ashwin wakes up in the morning and it's like, oh, that was a close game, and he is persuaded into watching another 10 minutes of it before being disappointed ultimately yet again. It's good for the Reds. They needed that. I think 2 weeks ago was a massive wake-up call for that team. They just weren't there mentally, physically, anything sortily at all. So they've come back. Good win last weekend. They played a lot better, stronger game. This weekend, I think, was a different sort of benchmark for them, because they had to show what they can do without having a team that's going to put them under pressure like the top teams are going to do over there in Australia. So, yeah, they really come out and played pretty well. If you want to talk about the Force, though, well, where did the Force go from here? It's a bit of a concern for them. The teams are getting a bit more onto them. They're little fiery starts. I think the changes in these experienced players coming back has changed them from that exciting, blockbusting, starting really hot team that can kind of shock sides at the beginning to a team that looks like they want to play an 80-minute performance, but now they don't look like that team that's capable of that. So they don't have that amazing little shock start, and then they're not good enough to play that full 80-minute game that they want to sort of play, that they're trying to play. So they kind of got the worst of both situations now by losing that fast start, excitement, young guns, nobodies, into a team of just what looks like just old guys that just aren't cut out for this level anymore.
Yeah, if we talk about Ben Darwin and the cohesion theory, look, they've brought experienced players in, but they've had no time playing together. This is a low cohesion Force team with inexperience sprinkled throughout it as well, which means they're going to give up points because that's low cohesion teams have poor defense. End of story. Because they just don't know and trust each other inside and out. So what they basically need is just a proper pre-season together where they actually get to learn each other's names. Because at the moment they've been introduced clearly, but they just don't know how each other plays very well.
Well, it's like the Force didn't actually have any games, really, did they? Whereas the Reds actually did play the beginning part of the Super Rugby. So,
but also,
effectively, they really haven't any game time.
The Reds are the same squad as they had in Super Rugby, right?
Yeah,
whereas
that's what I'm saying.
The Force had one game in Global Rapid Rugby, which is a very young team. Then got brought into Super Rugby, realised actually they hadn't got the experience, went out and bought about 5 or 7 experienced players, Thrush, etc. I've gone blank. The All Black
Kahui.
I'm going to say Goodhue, but it's not Goodhue. It's something like that, though.
All those white people look the same to me.
Godwin. There we go. Godwin.
All right. Yeah,
so
that one.
Yeah, so they went out and got these guys and basically and then introduced them. So it's not even the same squad they had for Global Rapid Rugby. It's a different squad to that. So hence why, they need a proper pre-season. And all these people going, they need to go and hire lots of new people. No. They need the people they've just hired to spend some time together. Yeah. Basically that's it. Yeah, maybe go and get out 1 or 2 players, but not try and buy a new squad because that just won't work. We've seen what happens when the Sunwolves buy a new squad every season.
But you talk about those guys, those key guys, all those big names coming through. You watch that game with the Force, and if you actually watch the Force how they play, it's those same players that play at that high standard, and they are dragging the team up. Like Kahui played really well. And I think Godwin has played really well with Kahui. He was terrible without Kahui, but having that guy inside him, I think they can take a bit of pressure off him and give him a little bit more space, albeit that they didn't have much at all. But he's better than he was. And the number 8, big number 8, I've forgotten his name as well. He's been the one standing up and smashing through them as well. So it's the same guys that are standing up continuously doing those same sort of jobs. Stander, that's the guy I'm thinking of. He's been phenomenal throughout. And I mean, I think they missed the Stowers and that they had in that back row. Those guys, that 3 back rows have been phenomenal all season. And they broke them up, rested them around, didn't have the same impact. Stander didn't have his mates. He was good, but you see those experienced guys, and they're the ones doing all the hit-ups. They're the ones doing the physical, noticeable things, but they just, the other guys go missing and they go invisible around them. So I think maybe they don't feel the responsibility, those lesser known guys now, because it's like, we've got Richard Kahui in our team. We don't need to maybe go and play like we were. We don't need to show ourselves up and play this magical play because we've got a World Cup winner in our team. We've got a Wallaby in our team in the midfield. So I'll just feed off these guys. But it's just not working. I think it's probably, like say, the continuity, but it's also a disconnect too, because you don't have the like-for-like players anymore. You don't have those outcasts in there anymore. And you've got those guys, saying these guys can do the magic and I'll feed off them. But it's just not getting that same connection between the players of that level and the guys from below.
No, they're not. And now, one of the points that's been made about the different levels between Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU is that, we know Super Rugby AU isn't at the same level, but one of the comments that's been made is they've got a very young crop coming through, and actually having a season playing against each other where the teams can build up confidence, can build up combinations, which is exactly what the Reds are doing here. This will actually put the Reds in a better place where, I mean, next year, again, it might be 2 conferences with some final series rather than actually a proper integrated season. So a couple of seasons with the Reds playing this level of game will be good for their team, which is what you were talking about earlier about them going through all of the about the keeping their level and not being dragged down by their opposition, which is good to see. So yes, that was pretty much that game there. Moving on then to the any final comments about that one, Steve? And Ashwin's obviously, I mean, we've talked for as long as Ashwin's seen the game, so we know he's got probably not got much more to add.
I was just going to say that you've hit the nail on the head with the Reds. They've got a fairly youngish squad where they've got some really key players that have come through the development or through Australian rugby development, and the time together. I think they got a pasting by the Waratahs a couple of weeks back, but they're actually developing quite well, and I think they're learning a lot. And as you say, if we have a truncated type season next year, it'll just give them another opportunity to grow that bit before they go to a full blown Super Rugby competition again, or whatever that looks like.
If you're going to break this game down for the Force, really they missed a lot of tackles. So they missed about 40 odd tackles, 41 tackles, and their penalties. I got hammered in the penalties as well. So almost double the penalties that Reds conceded. So when you're getting hammered on penalties, you're missing tackles, you're giving up heaps of territory. It's really hard to find your way back in the game when you're not kicking well. Nothing's really going to fall your way when you're playing that sort of style. But following what you guys are saying, you got to be excited about the Reds when their back row, especially, I think, is up there with the best. Liam Wright, Fraser McWright, and Wilson as well. Big standouts. Those guys just have been phenomenal. Harry Wilson, the big number 8, is leading from the front. He's such a strong worker, breakdown champion, carries like a monster as well. He's just everywhere around the field. He's a great player. He's athletic. He's got the pace around the field, a good support player as well. Those 3 are pivotal, I think, for this Reds team. And then you've got a guy like Salakai Loto in your second row as well, who is like another flanker in that team. It's a really strong pack. It's a really, really strong pack, and it's a mobile pack. I've talked about this quite a bit in the previews and things. They get around the park. They're hard hitters, and they will meet you on the wings. They'll meet you in the middle, and they'll be everywhere. And you don't want to pick a fight with them because they make it kind of personal, as we found out of Taliano Tupou last week against the Rebels. So they get around, and they do work, and they work for each other. They have that real team unity, which I think is only going to make them stronger. James O'Connor, you mentioned him, how well he is. Out of all those 10s, like the Tamuas and the O'Connors that have been, questionable if they're not 10s playing at 10, he's really grown into the role. I think he's been instrumental to this backline actually getting a little bit out of it. And you can see guys like Jock Campbell now making breaks. That bust he made to score in those early tries was really from nothing, just an aimless kick. He's got the ability to break lines and break tackles, and he's starting to stand out. Tate McDermott standing out. I'm a huge fan of him, how well he can spark a team from nothing. A couple of tries. He's got the sidestep that's breaking ankles in there as well. So, huge talents. And I mean, Australian rugby, against Australian rugby, young guys are looking pretty bright. I think they're really stepping up to a good level at Australian rugby level. Is it good enough, though, to go up against other international sides? We'll find out. But, it looks bright for them.
Yeah, you've got to say, James O'Connor, on a dry track with front football is looking good. On a wet track, when the pack's the pack isn't giving him great front football, and that's why he's a 12, and that's why he's more a natural 12 than a natural 10. But give the right conditions, and he's pulling strings. A couple of areas of concern for the Reds. They managed 8 tries, but that was off 21 clean breaks, and they did turn over the ball 16 times. So they could have scored more. I'd say the disallowed try, the other one just dropped. So this could have been a 70 point score from them quite easily.
They've still got problems with the line out.
Yeah, I mean, 2 out of 17 that they lost.
But it's against the Force, right? Whereas when they played the previous couple of weeks, the line out just kept falling apart, and it's just like, in the end, I think they even started taking quick taps in the previous games.
But talking about lineouts falling apart, we're going to move on to Steve's favourite team now, the Waratahs. 8 out of 13 they were successful with. They messed up 5 lineouts. If you're going to do, look, the Brumbies we know have a good set piece, right? They're a decent rugby team. They're not particularly magical team, but they're a well coached team. They're a solid team, and if you don't get your basics right, it's going to hurt you. And yeah, the Waratahs just couldn't get their lineout working at all. And if you lose that many lineouts, and that's what the ones they did win weren't necessarily clean either. I mean, we had ones where it's thrown straight over the top, and a player at the back catches it. So I mean, your whole setup for that lineout move is gone. You're just not going to get the territory from that. So Ashwin, did you watch more than 20 minutes of this one though?
No.
Oh, okay.
I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie. I saw less of this one.
Okay, that's all good.
Everybody's going, what have you got him on for?
Well, just to fill the seat, okay, folks?
That little frame up here in the corner here, up there.
Otherwise, because we get a white box there, and it really looks very bad.
So how many tries did the Brumbies score not from a driving maul?
All of them. All 6 tries did not come from driving. Did not come from a maul.
Oh my God! Maybe I should have stayed up and watched
it. No hookers scoring tries. None.
Scoring tries. Yeah, good thing you put the tries on the end.
That's why you should have stayed up.
We're talking rugby union. We're not talking rugby league here. Okay, that's just.
Ooh.
It's a different.
That's great forward. That's great progress for the Brumbies to actually start using a backline then.
Yeah, I mean, both lineouts were a bit of a mess, to be honest. At times, the Brumbies did sort of fix things, whereas the Waratahs never did. I mean, look, the Waratahs, on top of that, the Waratahs 17 turnovers really didn't help matters either. But they have fixed their discipline issue. They only gave up 9 penalties this time, rather than the sort of 16 or 17 that they've been giving up in the early games. So look, look, there's a little grain of hope. And look, this was a 1-point game going into half time. And on top of that, Dempsey also had a very nearly scored in the 7th minute, but knocked it on. So look, they were actually creating opportunities. Steve, I know you hate watching them, but I thought Dempsey had a pretty good game.
Okay, if we're going to talk about the Waratahs, there's something I've discovered over the weekend about the Waratahs. Now, the Waratahs are like the old guys at the pub that don't like anyone new going into their environment, and they try and intimidate people by being the old experienced guy that tries to just intimidate their way into success. That's what the Waratahs are. So you're going to go then, you've got a young team like the Reds or the Force for that matter, going in there new to the environment or trying to make your way in the competition. The Waratahs try to be bullies by stature to gain control over the game. You have players like Michael Hooper that try and get a control mentally of the game. And that made sense 2 weeks ago when they did what they did to the Reds, because they got that control in that sort of way. Once they get that mental, I guess, domination over them, they can control the game. They can play the game. But it's all about being that bigger sort of guy and that's intimidating factor. I think about the Waratahs, and when they come up against a team like the Brumbies, who are experienced guys who have that sort of structure, they know what they're going to do, and they're a complete sort of team as far as Australian rugby goes, they completely capitulate. They fall apart, and as the game goes on, they completely lose their marbles. And I think that was perfectly displayed yesterday in that game. They tried to get in there. They had a decent 40 minutes of it. But when it come to push to shove and things got a little bit, exciting there, they completely got hammered. And I just think they just don't have the belief, I guess, in their own skill and their own team and their plan that they try and use the old, like look at their pack. It's all the old firm. It's all the old guys been around there forever. And they try and assert the dominance in that way. Then once they have done that, they play the game of rugby because they've got the questioning going in the other team or their opposition's mind about their position in that sort of way. And then they get over them and they get control over it. So it's a mental game. Rugby is mental completely for the Waratahs. That's how they play their game. They don't bamboozle teams off. They try and mentally out-psych them, and then they play their rugby when they've completely bamboozled their oppositions. There you go. There's Rugby Psych 101 for this week's show. And next week we'll see that it's probably completely wrong.
And there's a couple of good players in there. I mean, Harrison is perhaps the exception that proves the rule.
Definitely. He's a superstar. Will Harrison's a fantastic player, but he's about one of the only ones. Carmichael Hunt's made a bit of an impression coming back, but now he's kind of flitted off and isn't really anything there at all, I don't think, anymore. But yeah, Harrison by far.
He was out this game injured, which and it tells, as you say, he doesn't. That was a big thing. He
makes a difference in there, but he's not an 80-minute difference maker. He's probably a 40-minute difference maker, and then you don't really see him coming into the rest of the game. And you just see all these guys. It's the Dempseys, it's the Hoopers, it's the Rob Simmons, it's the Ned Hannigans, all those guys. I mean, they're all old school. And I just think they just mentally try and intimidate their opposition packs. And I think that's the Reds, I think, just got completely not mind control, but just outdone mentally on that part of the game that they couldn't play the game plan. They were too busy trying to get one up. Too busy trying to get one over their opposition, too busy trying to show the old guys that I am the new guy, and they just forgot about how they were playing the game. And then, they lose their momentum, they lose their confidence, and it all goes out the window. And I think the Brumbies, like I say, it was pretty tight in that first half. The Brumbies, I think, are mentally easily the strongest team in Australia. Showed them up and put them away in that second half completely. And once the Waratahs don't have that, they're a shell.
Now, we don't normally talk about the referees and the officials in a game, but in this one, I think we do have to go and have a chat about the TMO. This one. So 2 calls in particular that we talked about. So the opening try, Grubber through the 9 is clearly offside when the kick is taken. Now, the only question is, does the kicker manage to play him onside before he starts advancing? The TMO goes pretty much. The TMO says yes, not clear and conclusive. That not clearly offside, suggesting that he did. Pretty much everyone else in the universe going, he's at least 1.5 meters offside. So yeah, the Brumbies definitely. Okay, Ashwin, you've at least seen that.
I've just seen the highlights while Steve was doing a Psych 101 class. And he was about half of. I wouldn't say he's 1.5 meters offside. He's about half a meter offside. He's about a step. He's about just short of a step offside in front of the kicker. There's no way the kicker goes and puts him onside from there. So yeah, no, he's offside, but he's not meter, and I wouldn't say he's 1.5 meters offside.
Now, if we go back to the Force versus the Waratahs last week, we had a similar kind of thing, didn't we? Where Hunt chipped over or collects and then throws a pass to collects a chip over and throws a pass to Gordon, who goes on to score. But Gordon then gets called for offside as he was advancing before anyone put him back onside from the kick, which seemed like a pretty tough call in that situation, because Carmichael had collected the ball and passed backwards to him, so he was onside by then, but obviously shouldn't have advanced when the kick had taken. To me, this was a pretty similar one, but yeah, he was advancing straight away, and that just shows a lack of consistency between the 2 games.
He's gone early.
Yep.
Basically.
Yep. In both of those, and then Samu's. Have you got the end of the game yet? Because Samu scored in the corner.
Nope.
Great try.
His foot, foot's definitely on the line. No doubt about it. Don't know what they were looking at.
So apparently not conclusively on the line.
Not conclusively touching any part of the paintwork, sure.
Apart from the bit of that foot that was touching white paints, yes. So yes, so the Brumbies were on the end of a couple of calls that were going their way. I think both of them. I can see an argument. Yeah, I mean, the Samu one, he was kind of like, dancing. Ooh, that looks a bit. He's out. I think. Steve, where are you on these two?
I'd just like to give Pete Samu a massive congratulations on how well he played. I mean, that was reminiscent of Elliot Dixon in the grand final against the Hurricanes, wasn't it? I mean, that was always a try. That was one of the greatest tries in Super Rugby final history. Pete Samu doing much of the same. Shut up! Don't argue it. Don't take that away from Elliot. Okay, don't take it away.
I called Elliot Dixon's try a try.
Exactly. There you go. It's conclusive. It's majority, and Paul doesn't get a vote. So Pete Samu.
Who's Paul?
Exactly. A fantastic player. That's why he was a Crusader. That's why the Crusaders would have liked to keep him on shore. Just shows he's got that ability to do amazing things. It showed, I think, something we haven't seen from him in Brumbies colours is that ability that he can kind of beat players. He's kind of just been pottering away as part of the pack, hasn't he? He's not really gone out lurking on the edges like he has then this weekend. He's gone out there, he's found a bit of work, he's beaten players on the outside, showing that he's kind of like an Adi Savia sort of player, how he can bust through the little guys on the wing. Like Alex Newsom's no chance against a guy like Pete Samu. So it's good to see him. I think the Brumbies will gain a lot from having a guy like that out there that can do that and create the space for them.
I think you'll go sort of like the Wallabies as well as the Brumbies would have gone, where's the Pete Samu that played for the Crusaders? And this year you're seeing him. He's actually, when you're seeing him running around and he's making that progress, and you definitely see the Pete Samu that played for the Crusaders this year. But he hasn't been there before that.
Yeah. And Samu got 2 tries, one on each side of the pitch, one on the left wing, one on the right wing. There was also another controversial one when Wright scored in the corner. But to me, the pass looked forward to him, but they were saying out backwards out of the hands. Yeah, maybe. And then for some reason, the man running on with the tee couldn't be bothered to run across the pitch to give the tee for the conversion. So he had to take a drop kick from out wide for the conversion, and actually bounced off the bar. But didn't go over, which was an amazing. It was a very good drop kick, just millimeters short. But yes, the member of the team's like, whatever. This is going to be disallowed. Oh no, I'm not running over there. Can't be bothered. So that was you rarely see a drop kick attempt at a conversion from so far out wide.
I'll tell you what. Speaking of kicks from out wide, the Brumbies got a couple of pearlers from out on the touchlines, one from each side.
I mean, that goes. Lonergan was amazing. I thought he had a really, really strong game. I don't think we've seen him all season. He was really, really good from the Brumbies and kicking as well, which is a bit of a surprise for him coming on, taking over Bailey Kunzel while he was on the field. So, another young guy. I mean, Lonergan's been around for a while. I don't know how he's super young, but fresh sort of talent, and he's showing. There's a lot of it going around in Australia at the moment. It's a depth, I guess, they've probably not seen for a long time, that they've actually got players that can come in and take a jersey, like Kunzel himself. I mean, he wouldn't have even been there if it wasn't the injury earlier in the season. Forgotten his name, but there you go. Lonergan's 22. So, the injuries coming through, replacements coming in, actually having that depth to play at a good level and actually coming in and performing. Australia hasn't seen that for a number of years, I don't think. So it's good for them.
I was going to say, look, I sort of like, I know we talk sometimes sort of in condescending tones about Australian rugby, and we shouldn't, because some of our most loyal viewers and watchers are from over that side of the Tasman. But the reality is that I think, I'm not saying that they're going to beat the All Blacks or, sort of thing, but they've got some good talent coming through that Dave Rennie's going to be able to work with to put a decent time. They don't need 100 players. They need 23 matchday players to go out there and put a good performance out there. And there looks like there's enough talent coming through to actually get a decent 23 out on the paddock. Key will be first 5 and halfback. And halfback, I think you've talked about. They definitely have halfbacks coming through, which look good. first five's a bit debatable whether I've got somebody that's a real class first five coming through.
Oh no, I think I think
Mr. Harrison,
yeah,
all the way.
they've got a couple there, Harrison, and they've also got some the guys injured at the Brumbies. Lolosio, yeah. So they've got a couple of guys there that are good, but it's what's has been interesting is that we've seen Rene's people of national or players of national interest, ponies, which sounds a bit like some sort of CIA list of people who are terrorists, to be bluntly, but a guy on Twitter has nicely put out the most experienced 15 that he could put together from the players of national interest that Dave Rennie has mentioned. So I'm just going to run through that for you so you can get an idea as to kind of the experience in these players. So Slipper in one jersey on 96 caps. Fainga is the most experienced hooker they've got with 12 caps. That's really inexperienced. Obviously, Alatoa, 37 caps. Again, that's not many. In the locking department, Simmons on 100, but Salakai Lotto, 16. Their second most experienced lock has 16 caps.
He's not a lock.
Well,
he's playing lock for the Reds, but he's not a lock.
Well, yes. Well, okay. So you get to the back row then, the Lucy's. Hannigan with 20 caps, Hooper with 99, Samu with 9. So in that pack, you've only got you've got 3 players with over 50 caps, which is not very many, really. Coming on to the...
Oh, yeah, go carry on. Sorry.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, that's true. I mean, experience is a big thing, but the other thing is that guys that don't have much experience haven't been beaten by the All Blacks lots. So, you're not going to go on there. You don't go onto the field with this mental thing. Oh God, we just keep getting smashed by these guys.
True, but this part of the thing about that, where they've got a lot of young talented players coming through who could be good, and we'll have to see about that.
Yep.
So then Nick White is the most experienced scrum half with 31 caps, and he's been overseas for most of his life. Tamura at 10 with 52 caps. O'Connor at 12 with 52 caps as well. And Kieran Drani at 13 with 61 caps. And again, Tamura, O'Connor both spent lots of time overseas there. So it's not been sort of depth within experience within Super Rugby for a long time. Corabetti on 29 caps, Hodge on 39, and Haylett Petty on 37. So again, apart from Kieran Drani on 61, then you've got Tamura and O'Connor, who've both been overseas for a long time. So they've not played international much recently. Other guys over 50 caps in the backs as well. So again, a relatively inexperienced back line. So yeah, so that gives you an idea as to kind of the lack of experience in Australian rugby at the moment because their players just keep going overseas to Europe and Japan.
But what year is it? It is the year, we all know what year it is, how can we forget? But it's the year after a World Cup.
Yeah.
When a team's at their most vulnerable in terms of experience is right now. And I think going back to what Ashwin said before, this is the perfect time to just get rid of all those old guys and now blood these new guys because they're not playing South Africa in South Africa. They're not playing New Zealand teams in New Zealand. They're not going to go over there and get thumped by the Crusaders. They've not got that travel. They've not got that. They're actually gaining confidence by beating guys they know, and they're winning. That's the main thing. It's like more than the Brumbies are actually winning games. The Waratahs, for goodness sake, are on a winning streak. Like how disgusting was that? The fact is that they're actually winning games. They're all winning games. They're all getting confidence. They're all knowing what it's like to be a winner. They're all knowing what it's like to close out a match and pick up the win from different circumstances. It's experience that different to what they'll get in normal Super Rugby, but it's invaluable because these young guys are coming through and they're going to play a season, maybe 2 seasons, where they're going to know how to win and that they can go into a game and believe they're going to win. How many Australian teams realistically go to Christchurch believing they can win? How many New Zealand teams go to Christchurch realistically believing that they're actually going to come away with a win? Very, very few, and they hope and they try their damnedest, but realistically, the thought's always in the back of mind, you're going to come away with the loss going out of Christchurch, or even now going to the Blues is pretty likely you'll come away with the loss there as well. So it's that mental side of things and knowing that you can win a game. they'll come back in Super Rugby. They can go into international rugby and have that bit of belief behind them. And now's the time to actually get these guys to learn that and not come in there, 5 caps, 3 losses to the All Blacks, 2 to South Africa. How's that to start your international career? That's just an absolute, dumper of a way. And it's all mental. It's so mental. Once you lose that confidence, it's out the window.
Back to that, psych class 101, isn't it?
Exactly. It's my topic for the day, that one.
Well, 102. We had 101 earlier. I think, as I say, so there's a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, look, the Super Rugby Australia aren't good enough to play with New Zealand. Look, actually, I think Australia's in a positive place player-wise at the moment. Look, there's a lot of promise there that could go really well. We have to see whether it will or not, obviously. But I wouldn't be so negative about Australian rugby at the moment. Now, whether they can actually have enough players to fill 5 teams, I think that's probably a little bit ambitious. But I do still think that it's in a good place.
We have to make sure we don't mix up Super Rugby with international rugby. As I say, you need 23 players in an international. You don't need to have 5 teams or 3 teams or however many teams you want to put out there. You only need 23 players that can do the job.
Steve, would you like to say anything to Aaron, by the way?
The last time I went to Forsyth Park Stadium, the Highlanders won. So that's the last memory I've got in my mind of the Blues getting thumped in the second half.
Did your mum and dad take you?
That's the last time they met in a Super Rugby, wasn't it? I mean, what's Super Rugby? How does it go, Paul?
How does it go? Hush, bro. Hush.
I've forgotten what it was. It doesn't exist. It's all Super Rugby now. And the Hollanders won last time. So let's keep that in mind. Just don't remember the fridge.
So quickly, the table then. Brumbies are top of the table on 23 points, having played 6 games. The Reds and Waratahs have both played 7 games on 21 points and 15 points. And the Rebels have played 6 games on 14 points. And then the Force at the bottom there on 2 points. Now, I would suggest that the Rebels and the Brumbies both have got the Force to come. So I would say that's 5 points each. So the real table is 28 points for the Brumbies in top place. The Reds in second on 21. The Rebels in third on 19. And the Waratahs in fourth on 15.
The question is, here's a big question for you. Where would the Chiefs sit in that table?
Probably second. So anyway, now we did have a question there.
Just hang on out. That means that next week's Rebels Waratahs game is very key.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Very key. The Reds have only got 1 game against the Brumbies left. They've got their points. They got the runs on the board. Got to get that one in. They got the runs on the board, so they're probably safe for a second or third position. But it's all on between Waratahs and Rebels. And so next week's sort of like a quarter-final of sorts for Waratahs and Rebels.
Well, yeah, so the Reds are guaranteed now to finish in top 3 because the Tars can't catch them.
Go the Reds.
The Tars can only get to 20 points, which would be 1 point behind. They've only got 1 more game to go, which is against the Rebels next weekend, which is a key game as to who that third team will be in there. If the Rebels win, they're in. If the Tars win, they're in with a chance. Because obviously the Rebels still will have the Force to play.
I think you mean around the other way. If the Tars win, they're in. If the Rebels win, they're in with a chance.
No, if the Tars win, they could be on 19 points. The Rebels could be on 14 still, and with 5 points against the Western Force the following weekend.
Gotcha. Okay.
So next week is the Tars' last game. They have to win it to guarantee themselves playoff rugby.
Yep.
We did have so the North-South game has been postponed 1 week. And obviously we've had the sides named for that. Batman does ask a good question though. He says, when is the Stewart Island team going to be named? It's obviously going to play Wahi in a North versus South small island competition.
Hui?
Wahi.
Who are they going to play?
The place where that has wine, Wahi Island.
Waiheke.
Waiheke. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Oh,
Waiheke. Well, hang
I
on,
didn't
mate,
get
but
the
then there's
joke
the Chathams, and let's not forget the Chathams and Great Barrier Island, not Great Barrier Reef, Great Barrier Island.
Are there enough people living on Great Barrier Island to actually put a team together?
Well, you don't just discriminate on them because they might have a small population. That's harsh.
So,
And it's 852 people on Great Barrier Island. Plenty. That's a Super Rugby side there.
As we said, we only need 23 for a match day 15, don't you?
well, look, I will tell you that there's been a lot of talking about club rugby, and we're talking about you need to get match day 23. The main problem club rugby sides are finding at the moment is actually getting 4 props, or is a big problem. So, folks, if you want to play prop, then get yourselves down to your club, and because clubs are crying out for props.
Doesn't tie up though, does it? It doesn't add up. World's going, in New Zealand included, the world's got an obesity problem, and we're short on props.
Oh, ouch! As you can tell, Ashwin played out in the wing.
No, I was a lock.
You're a lock. Wow.
I was a lock.
Cool. Short locks back in the day.
I could jump.
Could jump. Didn't mind getting lifted.
I was well
light
before
enough to be
lifting.
lifted.
Well before lifting days. I think we would have ended, if we were doing lifting, we would have been dropping players all over the place.
Oh, dearie me. So you're asking, you're quite right. Yeah, the Tars Rebels will be is the key game next Saturday. So tune into that one. The Brumbies should get a good win over the Waratahs. Over the Western Force on Friday night, with the Reds having a week off before coming back to play the Brumbies in their last game. Cool. Any other thoughts on Super Rugby before we disappear? Because it does seem a bit strange we've not managed to talk for an hour and a half.
I mean, they were pretty straightforward games, weren't they? So I thought they were like the Reds pretty much, dominated that game. The Brumbies pretty much dominated that game. There wasn't too much sort of contentious sort of rugby going on over the weekend. It was pretty cut and dry stuff, which was, I mean, from where I was sitting, to see the Waratahs lose convincingly and the Reds win convincingly was quite good for my Super Red picks, which I haven't checked yet, but I mean, just a taste test to see how it feels. Have the yellow cap on my head yet again. It's always a good hope.
And my bets went quite well.
Super Red champion, Ashwin, come on.
If you want to check out how my bets went, I will be posting up my driving maul versus the bookie on nzsportradio.com. So go over there and check that out. I'm placing bets on both Super Rugby and also the Pro 14 as well, which has got back going this weekend. So thank you, everybody, for joining us in the live chat. It's great to have you. We'll be back here. Well, I'll be back here at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning with the morning sports briefing. And we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for the Driving Maul Show, where we'll talk about the stuff that happens off the pitch for rugby. And as Jordan asked in the live chat about Razor joining GATS as the Lions coaching staff. Yep, we'll talk about that tomorrow night as one of our topics. Plus, we'll also catch up with the club rugby as well. So have a great evening, folks, and catch you all next time.